Hello and welcome to Good Things, weekly podcast where we talk about good things. This week's show, we're continuing on with our spooky season lists, and then we're into the year 2000 to 2009 for top 10 horror movies from both. So, yeah, welcome to the show. We're just going to get straight into it, because what's the point in pissing around?
Yeah.
Anyway, how's your week?
Well, wait, I'll tell you now. I had an ache in my shin, and anyway, no, never mind.
But top 10 2000 horror movies. That sounds wrong. From horror movies from the year 2000?
No, not
from
the year.
2000s.
From the decade.
The noughties.
Yes.
The aughties.
Noughties. Yes.
Yeah, aughties.
Noughties. Anyway.
But yeah, what's your 10?
Okay, actually, I'm going to start off with Jeepers Creepers, I think, for a number 10.
All right.
Yes. Why do you have that in your list?
No, I was going to leave that off because your man was a paedophile and a child pornographer. I was really caught on the. It's interesting because it would have been in my top 10 definitely.
The actual film. This is it.
The film is good.
That's the thing. Okay, I know that you said the director has, sort of he's been cancelled because of terrible crimes and all of that kind of stuff. But equally, there are good actors in this film.
That's where
it's
I get
a good
torn
story.
on it. It's not like it's just his movie.
Exactly. There's hundreds of
yeah.
other people involved in this whole thing. The film itself was a good concept, I thought. Justin Long, probably one of his earlier
He's brilliant
roles,
in it, yeah. Justin Long was great in nearly everything.
Exactly, and he'd probably pop up in more horror films throughout this, which is really weird because you don't think of him as a horror film actor.
No, for anyone who hasn't seen Barbarian, there was a lot of hype around it when it came out first, and I think it might have been just been with horror fans, but fucking go and see it. He's amazing in that because they kind of play up on the likability factor with him. And kind of go to it's just a fucking. There are so many points in that film where two of us are like, oh my god, But sorry, on Jeepers Creepers.
But Jeepers Creepers, I mean, it's. There's a number of them, I suppose, done as well. It wasn't just the one, and as I said, I always have trouble differentiating number one from number two from number three, and all the rest of they all kind of blend together in my head. But the first one, it's essentially your sort of your road trip through rural America, and suddenly you attract the attention of what you think is just a local yokel or
you think it's a serial killer thing. This is the thing at the time. It's hard to put it back into the box with it, but when it was coming out at the time, I didn't want to see it because I just thought, it's going to be another one of these wrong turn things, or it's just another slasher movie, but it's not. It's a monster movie. But at the time, they really hit that well.
Yeah, and I think what was even better about this as well was the setup wasn't a couple crossing the country or a will they won't they rom-com or anything like that. It was a brother and a sister travelling back from for holidays back to the family home kind of thing. So it was just, there was none of this I'm like, fuck all this romantic bullshit.
You don't need it.
No, absolutely. So it was just there was none of that. It was just two people fighting against this horrendous monster.
They were believable as siblings as well in it, and it's when the creepers reveal does happen in it.
Yeah.
You are kind of. I think because it wasn't doing great at the box office, so after about a week or 2 weeks, they dropped other trailers that were kind of that showed a bit of a monster kind of thing. So people were like, "What the fuck is this film about?"
Exactly. But I mean, it's sort of even just the thought of it and the special effects. It does a great thing to kind of drag together all these. You always hear these tales of teens that got murdered out on the highway and nobody really knows what happens to them. And then you stumble into this fucking creature keeps reappearing and basically kills
every 30 odd years, isn't it?
23 years or something like that, and just basically kills. He eats body parts that he wants, and then he just sews the rest of them up and makes a weird underground.
The mythology is great for the creeper. It's just part two wasn't great. The third one, the whole thing with the director, I want to say about it, Victor Salva. He got arrested. I think it was in the 90s. He got arrested and charged with getting a 12-year-old that was working on a film that he was doing to perform oral sex on him.
Yikes.
He filmed it, but as well there's allegations that he was at that child since the child was 7.
Yikes.
So all this stuff only came out in 2006, I think, or 2008,
after the
long
film
after Jeepers Creepers 1 and Jeepers Creepers 2. So it's more of a thing about like how shitty fucking Hollywood is as well. It's like, whereas why would you hire someone like this? That's quite like he's a convicted predator. Like.
This is the trouble, isn't it? There's an awful lot of people that are just that way inclined in all walks of life, and people trying to turn a blind eye.
More so in fucking Hollywood, though.
I didn't want to necessarily say that, but it seems to be an awful lot of Me Too coming out.
But that's
Hollywood.
what, like, it's a great film, but because I think you should be aware of that.
Yeah.
Kind of, if you haven't seen Jeepers Creepers and
the film itself is great, but there is that little bit.
It killed the friend. Well, like obviously it killed the friend when they did a third one, and I think he might have and like. I didn't look at it, and I think a large portion of people didn't look at it because of the whole where it's like, well, look, we don't want money going into this fucking guy's pocket. Like, I mean, I don't agree with cancel culture, but like, I mean, this is fucking different. It's not like, you know, someone said something stupid online. It's
not like a bad tweet or something. This is an actual horrible act.
But yeah, Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah. What's your number 10?
My number 10 is. I decided to put down a lot of the horror remakes because I was like, look, there's no point doing like individual ones kind of for it all. So I thought it'll just throw it in as one thing on itself because we went off and we looked at some of them again. So it's just like that was the thing we were saying before. 2000's were kind of the time of the remake.
Yeah, it was
fucking like, everything, not just horror movies.
Let's go back and we'll get a well-known franchise or a well-known film that we know was great, and we'll just do it again, slightly differently.
And I can't remember. I think the Texas Chainsaw might have been the first one, and before it came out, people were like, "Oh, this is going to be terrible." It was Michael Bay, not directing it, but his production company. So people were like, "Oh, it's going to be this fucking MTV shit," and it was MTV kind of different cuts and the way it was just more kinetic. And it was really good, and it was like received really, really well. So because that did well, then it was like, let's remake everything. So then I think as the years went on, it got to more obscure things because they were after kind of doing a lot of the famous ones at the start. So like, of course, you got Rob Zombie's Halloween in there as well, which I think is one of the better Halloween movies out there.
Even though everyone, well, I won't say everyone, but like critically, it was absolutely shot.
Yeah, I think it kind of, I've listened to other horror podcasts and I think it was like a fan favourite, but it's only now people are saying, this wasn't bad. Dawn of the Dead, Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. We went back looking at that again. Now, we had that on DVD when it came out. We saw it in the cinema, really loved it. It hasn't held up well. It's kind of directed badly.
It's okay, but it's just it's I don't know.
It kind of kickstarted the zombie thing again.
Yes, and I'll be talking about zombies.
Romero back, and we talked about that with Shaun of the Dead as well. Like on a previous podcast, if you want to go back and listen to that one, we get into a lot of detail about that actually. But it's. Yeah, but I think the best ones out of that were The Hills of Eyes.
That's this again. That's on one of my list, actually. Yeah.
One of the most fucking brutal movies. So that's on your list, isn't it?
Yeah, we can talk further about that at some other stage.
Yeah, but that was like Alexander Aja. He would have done Razor Blades or Switchblade Suitcase, or was it Razor Blades? I can't fucking remember.
Switchblade Romance?
That's what it was, Switchblade Romance, which would have been part of the French Extreme movies. And I was going to put that in here, but I was like, I can't really remember. And from what I can remember about, even though we liked it, we never went back watching it because I think
it was pretty gory, and I kind of
but once you know the twist, you kind of go, I don't really want to look at it again. So I'm just throwing in all of the remakes.
Alright, okay.
And there's a ton of them that we didn't, because he did get to the stage where we're just like, fucking what's the point? Like, but apparently some of the the crazies, we never looked at that.
No.
I think what's his face from Justified is in it.
Raylan Gibbons.
Yeah.
Alright, Timothy Olyphant.
Timothy Olyphant, and apparently it's meant to be really good. It's meant to be one of the better remakes, and better than the actual original, which I've never seen the original either. But so what would be your number 9 then?
So number 9, I suppose I'm going to go with another kind of a I suppose, a teen kind of death thing, which most horror seem to be anyway. Final Destination, that was.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, I think these are brilliant popcorn films because they've sort of seeped into sort of people's consciousness about, like, I mean, I don't know anyone who will drive behind a logging truck now and not kind of go, Jesus Christ, what if one of those logs comes up and fucking pierces through my windscreen? But it's fun watching because they get a bit more outlandish as they go along through the series, and it's kind of like, you know, it's sort
I
of
think
all
the
this,
first
like,
and the second ones were the best.
Yeah, they were a little bit more serious, I suppose, and it was more about, like, well, can you cheat deck kind of a thing. And it was a little bit more depth to it, I suppose.
think they had more money for the effects. The effects were, as it kind of went on, it got a bit shittier.
Yeah.
There was, I can't remember. It was one of the later ones that we were watching there a while ago that we never saw before, and it was kind of awful. Like the effects were awful in it. That kind of ruined it.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like, I mean, even to this day, like, I mean, if I'm putting, like, cutlery in the dryer or the sideboard, I have to put knives and forks, like, face down, because I'm like, what have I fallen? I'm like, Final Destination, I don't want to kill myself.
Tony Todd is in it, isn't he?
I think so.
He plays the underkeeper. That was meant to be a kind of a nod that, like, oh, look, this might actually be death.
Yeah. But it's just it's more and more inventive and grisly ways, like, you know, sort of like death in the shower, death by electrocution, death by, you know.
But it was so novel at the time,
and it was so fun as well.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it started being, it was kind of like you'd have a thing where it's like, Jesus, which is going to get her first? Like, fucking somebody would spill a can of fucking gasoline or something, and then a flame would start, and then they'd fucking.
It'd always, it'd never give you what you're expecting.
This is it, yeah.
With it, and because, like, I think they're rebooting it at the moment, which it's like you don't really need to, because they're all kind of self-contained stories. I think 1 and 2 are kind of linked.
You don't need, and equally you can just sit down and watch them just for the fun of what's the inventive way they're going to get killed this time, kind of a thing, you know. So like, I mean, I love those kind of films.
It is good. I was considering putting it, but I think it must have been the last one that we saw. It was the one with the fucking the car racing.
Oh, yeah.
And it was terrible. Like, it was really, really bad.
So up till then, as I said, like, I mean, it could run the whole franchise.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You know?
Well, it's still going with it. Well, my number 9 would be one that I doubt appears on many people's top 10s in any kind of thing, but Stuart Gordon's Dagon.
Okay.
Or was it Brian Hughes? And I can't remember. It's the Reanimator guys. They did Dagon.
I'm surprised you put that down. That was that whole the Innsmouth thing, yeah.
But done in Spain.
Yeah, I remember liking that, but I thought it was terribly cheesy.
Yeah, it was meant to be done, but it's probably, I think, probably one of the most accurate depictions of Lovecraft stuff in a fucking film. It's like the special effects, they're all practical effects, and they're amazing. You get to see Dagon near the end of it.
Yeah.
The fish people, they're done really well. It's just, the story is just, it's a faithful adaptation of it.
Yeah.
And it came out, and I think it went straight to video. I didn't even realise it was them because it didn't have it on the cover that was like, oh, Stuart Gordon or Brian Hughes. You know, it didn't have like from the team behind. So it was like Dagon. And I was like, what the fuck? The cover was awful.
Yeah. Which is probably why we ended up getting it.
Yeah.
It was just like, let's
Well, it was years after it was out that we got it. I think we saw it on TV, or I can't remember.
No, we did. I think we rented it out by accident or something. There's nothing else in, or like, this looks like shit. Let's watch this. And I was like, yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, this is actually good. Kind of okay. But I think if you're familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, you'll really enjoy it. If you're not, you'll really enjoy it. And there'll be a load of surprises in it as well. Yeah. Because it does get into
the whole Innsmouth kind of mythology and such.
But the H.P. Lovecraft stuff, where some of it, I know people are always like, oh, it's really dark, but there's this kind of like wonder at some of the monsters in H.P. because like they're completely and utterly indifferent to us. Yeah. But there is part of it where it's like, maybe they're not actually the bad guys. Maybe they're, you know,
maybe they're just toddling about their own business, like.
Yeah. And there's a bit of that in this where it's like, well, these people are actually being bestowed gifts, and it's, I don't want to ruin it because I don't think it'll be well known. So so that'll be my number 9.
Very good, lovely stuff. I'm going to do a little bit of a cheating here, and I'm going to go
number 8.
Yeah, I suppose with sort of a whole rake of zombie films.
All right, yeah.
So we mentioned Dawn of the Dead, so I won't bother going back into that again. Shaun of the Dead, obviously, was in the 2000s, and as I said, we went into great depth in this in another podcast. So if you want to listen to that, go ahead and do that. But that was, I think, the 2000s were sort of very good for blending horror and comedy. there's a number of the films on my list that kind of like blend. So, like, I mean, I would put down Final Destination as almost like part kind of like horror comedy.
Yeah,
dark
that's what
comedy
there was.
kind
I
of
was
thing.
going to put Shaun of the Dead in, but then I was thinking that's actually not a horror film.
Yeah, it's
at
more,
all. Like,
well, it's a zomcom rom or something, isn't that what they call it? But moving on from that, I mean, other ones that would have been kind of along that line would have been Fido.
I forgot about Billy Connolly.
Billy Connolly, yeah. So, I mean, it kind of just looks at what if, like, zombies were just like normalised and sort of they were given these menial jobs in society and they were
and
like
it's done the
pets
kind of
for,
50s
like,
style, wasn't it?
So it's all this kind of Stepford wife kind of a thing, really. So I mean, that was kind of interesting, just exploring like sort of what would humanity end up doing if we did have a zombie outbreak. We probably would end up doing that. We'd keep them as pets, or
but there was a bunch of terrible ones like that Boy Eats Girl with Samantha Mumba in it, and there, you know, it was because like people got to the point where it's like, oh hey, we can make a zombie movie for cheap, let's do, and it was just like rehash, and it was always the same. It was fucking, you went into a video store, DVD store I suppose at that stage, and the shelves were just full of remakes and zombie movies.
That's
really,
it, exactly, 28 Days Later, I suppose, is the daddy of them all. So that would probably be my official number 8. But I grappled for a long time with this. Dead Snow. I thought that was fucking brilliant. Dod Snow, yes.
Nazi
I thought
zombies.
That was brilliant. And it was shot great. It was like, there you go, there's your high concept. It's like, what if there was Nazis and they were also zombies? Or what if there were zombies?
It was a bit like The Evil Dead as well, wasn't it?
It was this frenetic fucking, and it was like, again, there was all these inventive deaths and like fucking.
Part 2 was a bit shit though, wasn't it?
That's it, but it looked great as well, because obviously it's set against the snow, stark white snow as well, so you know, you get all these gory
but the
blood
zombies
splatters.
were like evil.
They were proper,
like, I mean, not that you'd be sympathetic with them anyway for being Nazis, like, but.
No, but they're nearly sentient zombies, as in like sentient with Nazi sort of. Like,
they're cruel.
Yeah, exactly,
But I have 28 Days Later down at my number 6.
Oh, okay, so we can talk about that.
No, should we talk about it now? Sure.
Okay, go on then. So
But 28 Days Later kickstarted it all, like Danny Boyle. But they were like, we're not zombies. It's
that was
the infected.
It's exactly, and they differentiated themselves a little bit insofar as like the people who were infected with the rage virus.
The rage virus, that's what it was.
They were super quick. It was this isn't your sort of like brain shot like a zombie. It was just like, nope, they'll fucking tear out you and they'll run faster than
violent,
you can. They'll jump all over. It's not like you could just sneak through a city and just avoid it.
And that was just copied to death as well then by people that were like, oh well, we don't want to have a zombie movie, so we'll have like, oh, for some reason everyone's acting really violent and trying to set it in kind of the real world. But like 28 Days Later,
I mean, it addressed so many things. I mean, at the time as well, everyone was marvelling because it was it had the opening shot of him obviously walking through London city centre across, you know, sort of London Bridge as such, Big Ben in the background, and there was nobody else there, and you're kind of like, my God, how did he get that shot? And of course, since COVID, you'd easily get that shot.
They did it on a Sunday morning.
But they got up early basically before the street cleaners were out, even, and after everyone had gone home nightclub, and it was just like, I just did it in the morning.
And it kind of introduced the world to Cillian Murphy as well.
Absolutely, that was his big breakout role. But I mean, it kind of went through a lot of things like that. It was like, Jesus, you'd be kind of thinking, what if you did wake up in a hospital and the world had just gone fucking mad. And of course, then towards the end, you have what seems to be the good guys, the soldiers, come along to save him. They ain't the good guys. Do you know what I mean? Like a sort of very unsafe place for a woman to be, you know, in amongst.
And they did it well with Christopher Eccleston, as like because I don't know if he was after doing Doctor Who at that stage, but he was just very sympathetic and nice guy. Eccleston, that's it. Yeah, so you thought, oh yeah, sure, this guy isn't, you know.
Yeah, he's the nice guy.
Yeah,
and then it's like, no, he's a giant rapey creep.
So I wonder, would Kirkman have been working on The Walking Dead at that stage? But if not, I could imagine that.
That would have influenced a bit anyway. And of course, I had, again, great soundtrack, great music set to it, you know, and it's like you hear the music of that, it got so overused after that.
Every ad, every movie, every fucking trailer had like
the dramatic sort of opening. But so that's sort of my zombie films, I suppose, all along there. And as you said, there's your 28 Days Later appearing on your list for number 6. What was we skipped over your 8?
My number 8. My number 8 is I threw in 2 of them because I thought, it'd be unfair to have this director having 2, which I've done a few times on this, in fairness. Look, it's our rules, fuck off. But it's Dog Soldiers and The Descent by Neil Marshall.
Well, I've got Dog Soldiers on my list as well, so let's talk about both of those.
But Dog Soldiers,
again, revitalised the whole, werewolf, exactly.
But no one kind of really capitalised on it because it's so hard to do a really good werewolf movie, and they did something very, very different with it. Well, he did something very, very different with it. And I think it was his first full-length movie. He did a short beforehand, and it was a lot of the guys that were in the short with him. For people who don't know, Neil Marshall, he's a Scottish director. So I think that's what made it a bit special over on this side of the world as well. That it was,
like someone local. He was doing kind of a big budget horror or such like.
Yeah, and it's like the werewolves are very different, and like if you get they're like tall. And
well, I think what they did was they got people. They didn't. It was
ballet dancers.
Yeah, it was dancers who were walking around basically on stilts. To give them that kind of weird, elongated, hindquarter kind of a thing, which was mad concept, like, but they pulled it off so well. They were threatening and scary.
Yeah, it's soldiers versus werewolves, and like all the soldiers are really likable. So it's nearly feels like Predator. Again,
set in the Scottish Highlands instead of a jungle, like.
But it's really funny. It's really gory. It's a brilliant horror movie. Like I mean, it's probably, if there wasn't such like fucking hell. Like I mean, there was a lot of good films came out in the 2000s. Like outside, I really thought that I'd be struggling to get like films in the top 10.
I have a load of honourable mentions.
Yeah, same here. Like it's really, really hard. There was a lot of good. It was overshadowed by all the zombie shit and all the fucking the remake stuff. In the 2000s. But like Dog Soldiers, it's fucking Sean Pertwee. I think that was the first time I saw him.
I suppose that was the first time we kind of were, and he is a brilliant. You know, he's got that right kind of level of sort of that kind of laddish kind of like likability, and like you could see him being like a soldier in the army. Thing, you know, is like a thousand of those guys kind of thing, you know, and very well realised character. I think, really.
And there's talk for years of doing a sequel to it. I think he might actually be gearing up to do a sequel now, but it was the whole thing, the way that the werewolves are done, and. Like, you know,
again, it's the isolation again as well. They're out in the middle of the fucking Highlands. It's, you know, they're miles from anywhere. They're sort of, and it's dealing with hostile terrain, believe it or not, in Scotland, but it's very hostile.
It's kind of reminded me a lot of Aliens as well, like with the Marines, the way that it was done. It just kind of brought together it was like someone that you knew that was into the same stuff made a film.
Yeah, using all their favourite tropes kind of a thing and hitting all the favourites.
And doing it right and doing it well on a fucking very limited budget. And then there's The Descent as well, which had been his follow-up movie, which like I think that was like really well received, and I think it still is kind of critically acclaimed, especially because it's like about...
It's an all-woman cast essentially.
Yeah, that goes spelunking or cave diving, and they come across these underground creatures that are there, so it's a fight for survival with them. But I don't know what you could tell me, from what I remember at the time, people were saying, female critics, they were saying, it's like one of the more realistic kind of like sets of dialogue between women, like, you know.
It wasn't all like, oh no, I've broken a nail and how will my boyfriend ever love me now kind of thing. It was women being women together kind of thing, and like being sort of dirty, and not dirty, but as in getting gritty and dirty and doing something that isn't just like sitting quietly knitting or something like that, you know. It's out doing something.
There is an awful lot of talk about periods though, and kind of like, you know, keeping kitchens clean and which
women talk about periods an awful lot more than you would realise.
I know. Well, there's none of that. But it's just...
But as well, I mean, it's great from the point of view of not only do you have these terrifying monsters underground, but it's very claustrophobic, because obviously you're in tiny little tunnels and caves and getting stuck, and that's the big kind of thing. You're trying to breathe yourself, like watching it, you know.
It's brilliant. It's something. It's really violent, but the action is great in it. Set Part 2 is really good as well. And I think there's two different endings to it. I think they did like, there's the European ending, which is like really bleak, and then there's the American ending that they did, where it was like,
someone
it's all a dream thing, with it. But Neil Marshall, I think he ended up fucking off and doing like a lot of Game of Thrones stuff when it was on, and he's coming back to horror movies now. I think Lair was the last one that I did have bookmarked to watch at some stage.
Indeed.
But so that's my number. So what would be your number 7 then?
I think we kind of briefly mentioned there, I suppose, The Hills of Eyes.
Yeah, The Hills of Eyes.
That I think was very impactful. Both films, the original and that one as well, because there's terrifying violence in it.
It's fucking brutal.
Terrifying violence. It is horrendous, and like you feel every blow, you feel every burn of a skin. You know, there's so much horribleness in it.
I think that was the thing that really fucking surprised people. There was a lot of, it was one of these things that when it came out, people were walking out of the cinema because of how fucking gory it is. But it's even like there's sexual violence in it, and it's fucking horrible.
Horrible.
You don't actually really see anything. Like it's not gratuitous or fucking anything. You know, it's not like an 80s thing. But it's just, it's fucking. It is. It's horrible. It's really, you feel dirty watching it, and all the characters are really likable in it. So you do go, oh fucking no. And like the dad, like it's no spoilers here, he gets fucking killed straight away.
Horrendously.
He gets crucified and set on fire, and it's just.
It's basically, it's like, how many ways can we torture this man? You're just watching it and you're just kind of going, Jesus Christ, when is this going to end? Like this is just like the most fucking horrible, torturous pain that any human being has ever been put through. And it's like, oh no, wait, we'll go on better than that. Yeah. I
think that really opened up the whole door for like the torture porn stuff like that. I don't know if Hostel was there first.
But Hostel is one of my honourable mentions for that whole thing.
But like I think Hostel gets a lot more credit than it really deserves for a lot of this stuff.
I think that was really the sort of the mainstream sort of awakening, or I won't say acceptance of the torture porn thing, because Hostel did so well in cinemas.
But like, I mean, Hostel isn't really that fucking gory when you're looking at it.
But it's just, I suppose, it's just the concept of it, like, you know, because there was at that stage there was an awful lot of people going on cheap European holidays, and they were kind of like, oh god.
But you compare the violence in Hostel to the violence in The Hills Have Eyes, and even at the end when, like, you know, your man goes off looking for his daughter and stuff, and it's just fucking like, it's relentless.
And of course, I mean, again, it hits on the old trope of sort of like, you know, all these sort of like backwaters, hillbilly, weirdo, inbred families that are just, it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, isn't it? It's just like they just take this perverse pleasure in horribly torturing people.
And no one thought that they could outdo kind of like Wes Craven with one of it, and it like it is like, I mean, the original is alright as well. I think we have that in Blu-ray. But the remake is just, it's fucking...
It's horrendous. It's something that, it is something that you can only watch, if you are a fan of rewatching films, it's only once every couple of years. You kind of go, Jesus.
If you're sitting down looking at that over and over again, there's something fucking wrong.
But it is, it's that rough that you kind of go, okay, I have enough of that, I can't stomach anymore. I'll put that back away for another 5 or 6 years.
Like, say something like Terrifier. I could look at Terrifier.
Because it's so over the top violence. It's clearly
cartoon violence, even though it is horrific. But like this, it's very gritty and very
believable.
Real.
And that's why it's so uncomfortable watching it. Like,
and it's the way it's shot as well, because it's kind of shot in a washed out kind of effect.
It's almost
like a desert. It looks like it's shot in the 70s.
That's what I was just going to say. I don't want to say it looks like Breaking Bad, but it does. You can feel the heat of the desert. You know, you can feel the sweat dripping off you watching it, kind of a thing. You know, it's very good at evoking the place as well.
Well, I suppose my number 7 would be a little bit less sinister, but I suppose that's it. But Let the Right One In.
I have that way up the top. That's like my number 2.
Oh, that's your number 2. No, what do you talk about that?
Oh no, it's just I thought.
Since it's your second favourite movie.
Well, no, I think it was a really unusual horror film insofar as it's mostly centred around 2 kids. Just basically making friends.
One kid.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, like, spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's like set in sort of, is Norway or Sweden?
One of them.
Okay.
I think it's Norway.
Okay. Yes.
Or it might be Sweden.
Okay. A cold country, shall we say, and lots of snow and all the rest. But it's just this kid that sort of, you know, a bit of a loner living in his little
Eli, wasn't it?
block.
Or was it Eli? Was the
Eli? I can't remember.
Oscar. That was the boy. Yeah.
But again, he's slightly bullied at school, a little bit odd, a little bit weird, just, you know, and he makes friends with this, like, supposed girl next door who's essentially a vampire, but she's, you know, same age as him, sort of physically or whatever.
And you don't really get to know the history of it.
Kind of, you know, them making friends and her kind of protecting him from things and him protecting her from things, and there's, you know, it's just there's all these weird, and it's just so slow and very little violence. It's all just tension and suspense.
And, well, they show her kind of keeper or ghoul or whatever he is that you kind of suspect is maybe a paedophile. I think in the book, I have the book, it's been so long since I read the book. I think in the book he was a paedophile. And he's like killing people around to get blood for her.
bring him back for her.
And of course, she's not a her. She was like a boy that was castrated. I think that was part of becoming a vampire. I can't remember, but it was like, I think hundreds of years old.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But I mean, there's all these, there's such memorable scenes, and they're all so different as well. Like, I mean, you have sort of them sitting out in the playground, this eerie stillness with the snow and nobody else is around. You have the whole swimming pool thing, the fiasco at the end, like, you know, where I won't spoil the whole ending of it, but this poor kid is getting bullied, and his best friend is essentially this weird little vampire.
Yeah, it's great. Well, like, there's been a remake of it. Was it Chloe Moretz, I think, was in it, and
that could be it. Yeah.
someone else that
Someone else.
but like that went on to be like an adult star as well. And not an adult movie star, but like, you know, that they
continued on from
famous,
childhood. Yes, exactly.
But and there was a TV show of it, so telling the same story, and I'm not 100% sure. I think there might be a prequel book about it, but
I just thought it was a nice take on the whole vampire thing, because it got very far away from your usual, like, oh, Dracula and vampires. And equally, I know there's a lot of horror films that are kind of like the kids are the central characters. I know you could have a look at Salem's Lot and stuff like that, but it wasn't. They weren't friendly with the vampires. This was sort of this whole thing of this vampire is almost humanised, and it's just, that's how she has to be fed.
The way she's done or he's done is what there's moments where it's like very subtle makeup kind of effects done, where you kind of, it looks like it's someone that's hundreds and hundreds of years old, but like the relationship between the two of them is very sweet until kind of the end, when you start kind of realising what's actually happening. With, you know,
but it was just such an unusual film, basically, you know. And it's
shot great as well.
That's it. And it was just, I don't want to use the words brave, do you know what I mean? But it was kind of going right off piste and sort of doing something very different at the time. So I just, even for that, I was just like, bravo.
Well, as well, like, I mean, I think people nowadays probably take advantage, or not take advantage, but it's like they not appreciative of how easy it is to watch a foreign language horror movie nowadays, whereas like beforehand, for it to come over to say Ireland or England and stuff, they'd have to get a distribution thing, so they'd have to have a certain amount of success behind them, or some kind of like place that have to say, oh yeah, look, we really like it.
And a lot of foreign language films as well, if they weren't overdubbed, most people would ignore them, because there is this whole bias at the time against subtitles. I know it's gone the other way now, sort of the younger generation prefer watching things with subtitles on, just so they can have the volume down a bit. And equally, I'm old, so I prefer having subtitles on, because I'm fucking deaf.
But like, I mean, for a movie that was a small movie really, for it to get that big, and I think it was like nominated for Oscars and stuff.
That's it was critically acclaimed
at the time. And like, I mean, it's a lovely movie in a horrible kind of way. Like, for a horror movie, the relationship's really, really nice. But like, stuff that's going on in the background is fucking horrific. And there's one bit where it's a vampire transformation bit into the sun, and that's like, all of a sudden you kind of go, fuck. You know, it kind of turns into a vampire movie with it. But yeah, that'll be my number 7. That's your number 2.
Yes.
So, and your number what's your number 7 then? Oh no, your number 7 was The Hills Have Eyes. So I think it's like number 6. My number 6 is 28 Days Later. What was yours?
Well, we're going into another vampire film here. It's 30 Days a Night.
Oh, right. That's actually my number 4.
Oh, there we go.
I put it up higher, yeah.
Yes, indeed. That's why I say I had a few other that I might obviously put higher. But yeah, do you want to talk about it now, or do you want to wait?
Yeah, no, we talk about them now. We talk about them as they come up. Like.
Okay, so 30 Days a Night, again, another vampire film, but again, another interesting twist on it, insofar as it's set in Barrow, Alaska, where they literally have 30 days a night, this tiny little outpost in the middle of the absolute freezing fucking tundra.
Before, it's based on the comics by Steve Niles.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's essentially, these people are just battening down the hatches for like sort of the darkest part of winter, snowstorms, and the sun actually doesn't rise because of the way the slant is, I suppose, of the evening, the morning sun. So ideal for vampires to set up shop, because they're cut off, they're isolated. Vampires sweep in, they cut off all the telephone communications. There's no roads in or out really that are passable. They ruin the helicopter, so there's no in, there's no out, you're stuck in the town, and they just methodically work their way through the town, and it is proper eating people. It's not like, man, going to have a little bite.
They're more like,
They're like
or not true dark, fucking near dark vampires, but even more monstrous.
That's it. They're kind of, they're almost like a pack of animals rather than, you know, they have their own weird language or whatever. Like, you know, so it's not as if they're pure animalistic, you know, they have their
they're
leader,
monsters posing as people. They were, like, from what I can remember in the comics, there's like different mythologies where it's like, it's more like they're purebred vampires, you know.
That's it, and it is like, I mean, they are kind of terrifying. Like, I mean, sort of when they're screaming or, you know, sort of tearing chunks out of people, it's like, Jesus Christ,
they're proper monsters, and
and it is, again, like, I mean, it's one of my, I don't know why, I always seem to like things where people are stuck in the snow, dead snow, the thing, all that kind of stuff. But like, these people are stuck in this horrible, freezing, inhospitable place. They can't get out. They're trying to hole up in like attics. They're trying to be quiet. They're trying to move through. And of course, because it's set against snow, you stand out the minute you go outside. You're set against a white background.
They're being hunted.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
and it's not like the fucking, like what we saw the remake of Salem's Lot, which is awful.
But I think it was very well done insofar as it picked a load of characters that you typically wouldn't have. Okay, they had at the central point of it, they had the sheriff, and they had your one, what's her name, Melissa George, who was like the fire chief, or whatever. But they were partners. They split up, and there was this whole sort of like unspoken chasm between them kind of thing. But they had all these other sort of characters going on, which would happen in a thing like this. You had the father who had Alzheimer's or dementia.
Yeah, that was very good, because you are like, what the fuck are you doing? Where you're trying to stay quiet, like,
stay so quiet, and this poor man doesn't know what's going on, and he gets freaked out, and he's like, oh, where's my wife? And it's like, shush, 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 Dad, you can't, you have to stay quiet. Why do I have to stay quiet?
And children are not safe in this.
No, that's it.
Either, you know, it is just, these are fucking horrible monsters. It's a shame. It opened up because a lot of people, like, 30 Days a Night was massive as a comic book, and then when it was being turned into a movie, everyone was like, oh my god. And it was like, I think it's very, very true to the comic, but it didn't seem to do like fucking
great guns at the box office.
Like, there was a sequel to it. I think it might have been a web series, or there was, but like, it was terrible. The comic sequels aren't great either, but it's really a franchise, I think, that wasn't fucking
do as well as it should have, I suppose.
Yeah, or kind of like that they didn't take advantage of it, you know.
At the time,
they should, and I think Josh Hartnett was great.
He was very good, yeah. And Melissa George, I know she did a little bit of horror acting after Home and Away, but she's very good in this as well.
Yeah, she's still in stuff, and like Josh Hartnett, there seems to be, like I was saying to you the other night, that he's kind of having a bit of a comeback at the moment. But like, I really liked him in Penny Dreadful as the werewolf and stuff.
But I mean, I thought this is nice because, again, it's the people you don't expect that are sort of persevering. It's like, it's the 15-year-old kid, it's this old grandma, it's like you know, this fellow with his father with dementia, it's a small child, you know, it's all the sort of the it's not your burly men or your sort of your smart mouth teens or anything like that. It's just. But
that's the thing. You're fucked. They're like a force of nature, and like, even like their ghoul, or for lack of a better word, like, he just gets fucking destroyed as well.
So they're just like, oh, you've done your job, and he's like, oh, what is my thanks? And it's like, you get to do it.
Yeah, they're like, they'll believe anything.
He's fool.
But you do get this whole sense that they're like, there's even one bit where like they stand on someone's head and the head just collapses, and your man is like, oh, these are just a plague on the world. Whereas like very different species, it's not the usual thing where it's like, oh, they're just food. It's like they genuinely despise humanity.
Exactly. Or
and
like
that's
rats or cockroaches kind of
they get like pleasure in like torturing and toying with it, you know. But 30 Days of Night, fucking I was saying, it's my number 4, so it's up high for the two of us. So that was your number 5. So my number 5 is,
was it?
No.
Okay, I can't keep track. Just keep going till you hit the top.
Yeah, my number 5 is Saw.
Oh yeah, well, that'll line up exactly with me then, because my next one is Saw as well.
Yeah, so it was only, I wasn't going to put it in on it at all, but like, I mean, Saw, I think, probably did start to torture for and stuff.
It was that whole inventive, like, do you want to play games?
Yeah.
It was like, oh, this serial killer was, kind of giving life lessons and sort of like taking pleasure
And like the first one was made, people forget because it turned into such a fucking massive franchise.
Yeah.
The first one was made for nothing.
Pennies, yeah.
And like it was really weird that Danny Glover was in it, but I think Danny Glover was only there for 2 days and they shot all these stuff in 2 days, and he didn't have a fucking clue what was going on. He didn't really care.
But I mean, you think about it, most of it is just shot in one horrible, dirty fucking room.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah.
It's brilliant, but looking back, like, I mean, I think from number 2, it turns into what people think of. So,
Yeah.
like, the first one is very much a serial killer hunt.
Yeah.
There's not many deaths in it at all.
There's not a lot. I mean, it's still very grisly. I mean, you still have a fella sawing off his own foot while he's alive.
Yeah,
trying
but
to
you know,
escape
it's
and
not like
stuff,
with the other ones. The other
I
ones
know,
are
yeah.
just
It
like
was
all about the traps. Yeah.
that was it, and all about how are people going to get out or not get out.
Yeah, and it always got a bit convoluted because, like, at the end of the first one, like, they do the whole kind of thing, oh, this is what it was really, going on.
This is why.
But they do that at the end of every saw then, where it's like, oh,
They
there
add
has
on
to be,
another little bit,
oh,
yeah.
you thought that it was this person, but it was actually this person.
Whoa,
then-
a moustache.
What was really hard to follow when they were coming out, because there was like a year gap between them. So they'd have, say, in Saw Part 4 fucking 5, some really weird reference to some background character in Part 1
Yeah,
that
you're
you're
like,
supposed to
what the fuck
know.
is this?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, this is the real person that's the killer, because Jigsaw is dead, and things, oh no, Jigsaw's not really dead.
He's back again.
It's just like, fucking, what the fuck is going on?
Well, it was the first one. It was done so cleverly. Like, I mean, there are so many. Like, I mean, even the reveal at the end, where like the dead body that was in the room with them all along, it wasn't a dead body. It was him, and he stood up, and he was there.
I think anyone that says that they knew that it was him is a fucking liar, because they hardly showed him, and there was
it was
one
just- it was
brief clip.
It was just a passing thing. It was like, oh, this has already happened, and he's there almost as a vehicle just to move the film along. It's like, this happened to this man. Okay, now it's going to happen to the two of us. What the fuck do we do? And the body was just discarded.
I think everyone, until he cuts his fucking foot off, everyone thought it was the doctor.
Yeah, because it was pointing to it, and it was all these red herons and such, But it was just, it was done, and of course everyone thought it was the doctor and the orderly as well, because obviously the orderly got involved with it. But just totally inventive and totally sort of
and going back looking at it, kind of like after all these
holds up
years,
so well.
it really holds up really well. Like,
and I mean, it does the whole, I suppose, the Pulp Fiction thing of like zipping around between, like, it's the present, it's the past, it's the future, it's the present, it's the past, and it actually holds the story.
there are some stupid bits in it though, like you pointed out, and like you can't really get on because it was like really, really low budget. But the bit where it's like the flash in the car park. And you were like,
he's taking
photographs.
photographs.
Why would you have the flash turned on your camera?
If you're
It's like,
sneaking around trying to take covert photos of somebody, like, click flash. I was like, oh, a dark car park, who's flashing at me?
And like, I mean, as well, one of the turns out to be like the main character in all of the fucking. So Amanda, I forgot she was introduced in the first one. Because in the second one, it's a big thing where it's like, oh, and then it's revealed at the end of two that it's like, it's her, is Jigsaw, and you're kind of...
What?
Yeah.
I thought it was the other dude. Yeah.
But yeah, so fucking amazing.
And of course, spawned the franchise, the endless franchise. That's probably, I think it's still going on.
It's a shame that, there was that Spiral one, and they brought it back. I think it's Saw X maybe, or so, I don't know, but it's like they go back to before he became a serial, I think, but it's meant to be quite good. But they did that Spiral one, which I was so looking forward to with Chris Rock in it, and that was fucking garbage.
Yeah, I like it. Now I was genuinely confused because I think I just lost interest, but then I was like, what? Wait, what did he just say? Who was doing that? What?
That was the ending to it, where they were like, oh, sure, it's just leaving it wide open for a sequel, but not actually finishing the movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I don't think you're going to be getting a sequel.
Very optimistic here, guys. Yeah.
But yeah, so number 5, and as well the impact. So it had a cultural impact. It had.
This is it.
Like,
but again, that's the whole thing. I mean, again, you will have people who will quote it without even knowing that they're quoting it. You'd have younger people like, do you want to play a game?
And I don't think there was...
Or the memes from it as well, like Jigsaw cycling, the little puppet cycling up on his little fucking trike and stuff.
From the 90s, like in the 80s, you had Freddy, Jason, fucking Michael Myers to a certain degree, where everyone was trying to come up with these characters that at last. And the 90s, maybe Leprechaun. I wouldn't even, like, but like, I mean, as a character
Chucky,
thing,
I suppose,
where it was like, Jigsaw
80s.
just happened organically.
Yeah.
And it's like, he is. He's like fucking massive. He's a horror icon.
Yeah.
Even to be like parodied in Scary Movie and stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I mean, that little fucking weird puppet thing with the little red cheeks pops up somewhere, and everyone is like instantly, it's cheeks up.
But that's my number 5. So. And that was your number 5 as well. So my number 4 was 30 Days of Night. What's your?
Right. Actually, I think I'm after getting ahead of myself there. I don't know if I'm after losing track. But anyway, Devil's Rejects.
Devil's Rejects. Yeah, that's my number 2.
Okay, sure. You can talk about that one then if you want. No, you take the lead because this is definitely your film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I threw in House of a Thousand Corpses because I think the two of them go together really.
They're a pair.
Yeah. Although I think Thousand Corpses would have been finished in the 90s. I think late 90s, but it got shelved by Universal, I think it was. They were like, we can't, because they wanted like him to do to tie in like a fucking horror house theme for it all.
And then they saw you do not like, want a horror house theme for this, like this is
and they didn't really know what to do with it. So then when it did get released, and people shit all over it, they were like, oh fucking, what's Rob Zombie doing as a director?
Yeah,
and I thought it was great
music by.
I loved it, and like, I mean, I think now it is a cult classic. Rainn Wilson is in it. It's hilarious. What was his name? The Nerdist, I can't remember his name. He used to be on he used to do Chris Hardwick.
Yes. Well done, Jesus Christ, my fucking memory. But yeah, like, I mean, it was hilarious, and it was horribly gory as well. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It was back to sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre levels of fucking.
But the Firefly family were, and like, I mean, it's really like Devil's Rejects. I think Devil's Rejects is going to be, at some stage, there's going to be a big turn of people appreciating it. It's like a Sam Peckinpah. But it's a cowboy movie. It's a 70s movie, and it was very much. It felt like a nearly Quentin Tarantino movie, but more fucking violent.
Yeah.
Where it was like sympathising with the bad guys.
Yeah.
Not that Quentin Tarantino stuff doesn't sympathise with the gangsters, but they always have some kind of nice quality with them. Whereas the Firefly family, they're just
horrible.
They're murderers, but yet you sympathise with them. That's
it. You don't want to see them getting hurt because you're like, oh no, they nearly got away, kind of thing. So it's like a cowboy chase film.
Yeah. Basically. So for a director to be able to do that, for someone to be able to do that in the film, to get someone who's after
to be able to jam his wife into every film, and she somehow is fucking brilliant as well. Like.
She is. That's the thing. Sherry Moon Zombie, like, she's not going to win any Oscars, but like, she's good. For that.
Yeah. She was that character personified. She was just this nutty fucking lunatic. You know, I can't do. Like, I mean, you could see where she was going to be Motherfly or Firefly in her later
I thought she was very good in the Lords of Salem as well, where that was her movie. And like, I mean, I do like the whole thing that it's like he never makes a movie without her. I think that is a nice kind of thing. It says a lot about the relationship and stuff.
That's it. But that's what I mean. Like, you know, for somebody who manages to jam his wife into every film, this is perfection. Yeah. I actually can't think of anybody else that would have been better playing that particular.
But like, I mean, fucking what's his name? He's dead now. Sid
Haig.
Yeah, he's like as Captain Spaulding. Captain Spaulding is iconic in it.
Yeah.
And Bill, oh my God, Mosley, And the hilarious thing about Bill Mosley is in real life, apparently,
he's such a nice pacifist.
He hates violence.
Yeah, wasn't he like they had to stop numerous times during the sexual violence thing? Yeah, you know, because he was just like, I can't do this.
And then they'd nearly up it again, and he'd be like, oh God. But like some of the lines out of it, like the next thing you say better be some Mark Twain shit because it's going to be etched on your fucking grave, you know. Or when he kills me and he's like, I'm here to do the devil's work, which I think is maybe a Manson quote or something like that. But it's an amazing movie, and when it came out, a lot of movie like Empire shit on it. I think Total Film were like, fucking, this is like great. This is a throwback to 70s cowboy movies and outlaw films, and it's just shot really, really well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's outlaws on the run, basically. Yeah. Fucking killing their way across America, being chased by cops.
Yeah, and I think it's his best movie, without a shadow of a doubt. It's fucking great. Like I really, really, obviously, really, really liked it. Soundtrack is amazing as well. Even though
it is actually, the soundtrack itself holds up perfectly. Even though you would expect a zombie to be like heavy metal or something, it's not. It's all 70s.
Yeah. And it's like weird 70s. Like, I mean, obviously Freebird is in there, but like there's David Essex songs and fucking Excuse me, I can't.
Allman Brothers, I think.
Yeah, the Midnight Rider.
Yeah.
I've never heard fucking the Allman Brothers before that. I'm a metalhead, so
Yes.
it's not like I was going off listening to 70s fucking country rock music. Even though I would have been aware of like the Allman Brothers and probably know one or two others, but like that song for ages, that's all I was playing. It was just like, oh my god, this song is.
It was brilliant, exactly. But it was all perfectly chosen for the film, which is a sign again of a good director that isn't just like, I like this music, so I'm going to jam my fucking metal into this horror. And it's just like, no.
The making of it is brilliant. It's been
The costumes.
The costumes, yeah. They have like the costume designer. They're like, oh, we're going for one of them. They wanted combat pants.
Yeah,
and they were
tattered combat.
yeah, it's going to cost us like around $250 or $300 to make up one of them. We're going to need 5 of them for whatever it's going to be. And he was like, what the fuck? Get down to fucking Walmart and pick up.
He was like, go to the army surplus store, pick them up for like $1 each, and you throw some muck on them. There you go, like you know, fucking keep the budget down. I only have like 50 quid to make.
Yeah, because it was like you see, like he had no money, mate. You know, and it's I do think a lot of times with creative endeavors, the best things happen when
you're pushed, exactly, because you have no money and you have to come up with something that is
and that's why the 80s were so, because people were like, well, fuck, how do we make this monster, kind of like, so people just got really creative with it. But that's my number 2, and that's your number 3, was it?
Number 3, my number 2 obviously is Let the Right One In. So what was your number 2?
Well, the Devil's Reject. So my number 3 is Martyrs.
Oh yes. I didn't put it on the list because I know you probably had it on yours.
So you didn't. Well, I think you didn't
like
mind
it first time round. Now this time round, I was like, okay. I don't know. I think, I don't know. Maybe it just there's. At the time, I probably thought I was just like, this is gratuitous. This is absolutely extra. You don't need to show this amount of violence. It was just this relentless beaten and beaten and beaten, and it was kind of like fucking. Oh, you actually said it when we were watching the other night. It's kind of like, oh, fucking. No, I don't know what you compared it, but it's like the South Park film where he's just vomiting and then he vomits again. It's like there's beating and beating, and then he goes off and it's like, oh no, I'm coming back in. I'm going to give you another fucking beating. It's just like, oh my god. So I think
and
at the time,
skinning.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, that probably tipped me over the edge years ago, all right. But it was. I think at the time I was like, this is.
I think looking at when you know what's happening.
Yeah, you know why. Yeah. The second time round it isn't as bad, but the first time you're kind of like, Jesus fucking Christ, like this is just beyond the pale.
I think it's probably the peak of the French Extreme movement that was going on in the 2000s. It's people talked about it in fucking hushed tones for you because of the violence in it, but it's hard. I don't want to ruin it for people that haven't seen it, but there's an awful lot more to it. The actual it's about dealing with trauma. Like that's a big part of the movie. It's like fucking PTSD, and like violent PTSD, and like how it can take on. And then it turns into this
spiritual, religious, fucking otherworldly type thing,
and
with
it's
shadow organizations basically.
And I love the end of it, like the very end of it, last after you think it's over, and there's like, you know, about 2 minutes of what you think is going to be like this big reveal,
and then it's like, nope. No reveal for you.
I love it. I do think that the beaten part is a bit. Now it was probably more violent even before that, but it's the realism to it.
Well, that's it. It is. It's proper, and it's just this unflinching like thunk, and there's a thunk on this flesh, and it's bone breaking, and it's just.
And as well, it was coming from the 80s and 90s where things were. It was like Last Action Hero.
Yeah, it's cartoonish violence. Whereas this is real violence. This is fucking horrendous. But again, I suppose for the point they were trying to make, maybe you needed that, but there was a point where I was kind of going, come on.
But it's just it's evil though. Even though they think that they have a good purpose, or that there's even it's not even a good purpose. It's a selfish purpose.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just being nosy.
Yeah, and it's like what people are willing to do.
Yeah.
But then it's the consequences.
Questions,
the consequences to all this kind of shit. And just the impact. Like, if you don't know what you're walking into when you're looking at it.
Yes, and if you're a casual horror fan, this is not.
Oh Jesus, no.
You need to be. You need to have a strong stomach for this space.
But like the way it was sold with the trailers and stuff before was that it was like a monster movie. Because
people are the real monsters.
yeah, no, but you know the way that there's like someone has seen monsters, and that's what they showed in the trailers, and that's so you kind of thought, what the fuck is this thing, you know? And then it changes about 2 or 3 times.
Yeah,
throughout it.
Yeah, it keeps turning into a different film and a different film, which is quite. It's good.
Yeah.
But,
and he was Pascal Lautier, I think his name is. He was meant to do Hellraiser afterwards, and it just like, I mean, there's been loads of stop starts on fucking millions of Hellraiser films over the year, but he would have, I think, done something fucking probably horrific.
Terrifying.
With it. But yeah, that's my number 3, and then like I was saying, Devil's Rejects was number 2, and your number 2 is that right? So it's both are number 1s now.
Are exactly the same.
The
number
Mist.
ones, the Mist.
Yeah.
How could it be anything else, really? In fairness. Again, we went back rewatching it there, but I mean, it's like, you know, people are the real monsters. So like I just said, you know, you have this. It's your typical Stephen King thing where you're dealing with, there's a disaster happening, people are all stuck together, and then people begin infighting, and the religiosity starts rearing its head, and the fucking, you know, you've got all of this going on. Yeah, it's the town hall thing that Stephen King does so well. It's kind of like all these characters emerge. You have a few leaders this way, a few leaders that way. You have the ne'er-do-wells. You have the big lunks that just cause trouble for everyone. So I mean, like, what did you think of it?
I thought shit, but it's great.
You have all these sort of Lovecraftian monsters coming through the rift, you know, and
I think the effects have aged a bit, but like, remember his budget got slashed from something like, I think initially say he had 100 million and they slashed it to 20 million because he wouldn't change the ending to it,
and. If it hadn't been any other ending, it wouldn't be number 1 for me.
No, without a shadow of a doubt. The ending makes... Well, it's like, obviously the film makes it, the characterisation in it, and I think it's the religious aspect in it, where like there are religious people in it that really add to the sense of fear in it, whereas sometimes these people are portrayed as being like the good people, but like in this where it's like... and someone says that they sum it up there like, wait until she starts rallying people around her and then she'll start talking about fucking sacrificing people, and like, I mean, it all starts.
And what's terrible is it's you kind of think like, oh, maybe it is just that particular. It's more relevant today than it probably ever has been as well, because you have the rise of like, I'm not singling out, but you have the rise of so many different religious.
It's fanaticism, and as well it's that thing where
everywhere. Like, I mean, you have the rise of the Christian right in America. You have it all across Europe. You have Islamic states. You have Jewish states. You have everything.
I don't think it's the right. I think they're always there.
They're always there, but it's everything kind of swings one way for a while. Everyone kind of goes a little bit more secular. Everyone quietens down a little bit, and then it goes right back the other fucking way.
But it's like the whole thing about the film, I think, is about what people do when they're scared, because you have these people that they're quite nice, normal, rational, small town people, and they're terrified of their wits. They don't know what's going on, and they start indulging in fucking violent acts and start doing things that they'd never normally do.
And you see people, I suppose, as well, their true kind of character comes out. You'll have somebody who will naturally be a hero or naturally try and save people. You'll have people who will be naturally nurturing and trying to mind the children. You'll have other people who'll be like fucking cowards and fucking...
People just killing themselves. Yeah. And there's a lot of that in it.
I don't mean people who are cowards for killing themselves.
No, but you know what, like, I mean, there's people just like killing themselves.
Yeah, because they're just like, well, fuck it, the alternative is too fucking terrifying.
And like, for anyone who hasn't seen it, like, the ending is probably...
the bleakest ending of any film that I can recall ever.
Really. But it's just done so well. Thomas Jane is a fantastic actor. I think he's after fucking... not dropping off, but like, I mean, there was a time where he was the big action kind of star. Now he's in, well, not even the big action star, like, I mean, the first film, what was that Striker thing, was about the robbers, bank robber. Yeah, he was, but it was before that. It was a true story about these bank robbers in, I think it was South Africa, and people were going on, he could have been like De Niro, and something happened to that. I think when he did The Punisher, because he really wanted to do The Punisher, then he ended up doing a lot of B-movie stuff, and it seems to have kind of like...
Didn't he play like a homeless dude?
Oh, it was... No, he was Thomas Jane in it, but he was playing homeless dad, and he was like, I just want my kids back.
That was very good.
He's very funny. He's been in a lot of fucking really, really, really good movies, but he was the Punisher.
And I mean, The Mist then as well, like, I mean, fucking, we might still spoil it, because I mean, like, if you haven't seen The Mist...
If you don't want to know the end of it, look, we're after seeing our number ones, just turn off here.
Yeah, exactly. We'll go into the honourable mentions in a bit, which aren't, you're not going to miss out. Like. But yeah, I mean, like it is, they make their break for it, and you're sort of your last hope there, and the car sputters out, and it's like you're sitting there and you're looking at the gun and the bullet.
And we've only got 4 bullets, and there's 5 of us.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it's and it's harrowing because they have, I don't know what the actual music is. I don't know, They Can Dance or something like that, but it's just this real mournful, plaintive, wailing kind of key.
But there's that noise that's going on when it's silent, and it sounds like monsters coming in close to him. It's like...
That's it. And he's just literally after shooting his child and then you all see of his companions.
His flamethrowers. Well, napalm fucking kind of from like the army that are coming in to save.
Yeah, finally after, that's it. I mean, they're finally killing the monsters, and there's finally like there's redemption and saving on the horizon, but he's just after killing. His wife is already dead. He's just after killing his child. He's killed the last few people in the world he cares about. Why do I want to fucking do? He thought he was facing down monsters to get killed to be with his family.
That trek from when they leave in the car and they show like some of the really tall things that they're like really fucking Lovecraftian kind of size.
Yeah, all these big massive fucking legs.
Tentacles that are like fucking like
it does,
thousands of feet tall.
It does it all. It's almost awe-inspiring because you do kind of go fucking whoa. This is, and it's so atmospheric. Like just the driving, and you like slowly driving past, watching all the other people that are dead or
it's a witness to what you think is the apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, when you think you're literally about to get killed, and you've killed everything that you care about, and then the army are there, and then some other people then are saved by the army who you thought were
that they left at the start. Where it's like, well, if you have to move at the start, you not your family probably.
Sometimes you hesitate and you lose it all.
And like, I mean, it's for people who might know, it's like fucking
Frank Darabont, wasn't it?
Yeah, he went on into like obviously Frank Darabont is well known, like Oscar winner, but like he did the Walking Dead, so there's an awful lot of people that were in The Mist because I think he did the Walking Dead after, and it was at the start. I forgot Carol was in it. She looks totally different, obviously.
As in like, Carol, because you said that's Carol, and I was like, that is not a little boy. It's like, oh, Carol. Like,
but she's brilliant. Or not brilliant, but like, I mean, it's just really weird seeing her and then the other people that are in it where it's just like, oh my god, like I didn't realise that they were
Herschel, in it. Wasn't it? Was that his name?
No, I can't even remember.
Not the chap who sorry, no. I won't even try and remember.
Yeah, but there's like first two seasons, there's a lot of them that were in that were in this. But yeah, The Mist.
Number 1.
So I suppose kind of honorary
mentions.
Yeah. I have a few weird ones that I think Behind the Mask.
Okay, no, I don't.
The Leslie Vernon story. That was, do you remember that? It was like it was like a man bites dog thing, where it was a documentary crew were following this serial killer guy. And it was him just talking about stuff. It should have been a load of films came off it. It's really, really funny. And it's really, really horrific.
Do you remember that? I'm not sure.
Cabin Fever, which would have been fucking What's His Face's first film before Hostel, and Eli Roth. Cabin Fever I think is better than Hostel.
No, yeah.
Cabin Fever, Cabin Fever 2 is fucking hilarious because it's so different. Ty West, that was Ty West's first movie, and it's kind of done like an 80s kind of comedy, but in a horror. It's just fucking really weird. Behind it, but American Psycho, Planet Terror, Scary Movie, of course, Daybreakers. I think a lot of people forget about Daybreakers. Ethan Hawke is in it. I think William Dafoe is in it as well, where it's like everyone is a vampire.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of humans running around doing so. It subverts the whole thing. It's really good. Bubba Hotep is amazing as well.
That's one of my honourable mentions as well, Bubba Hotep. If anyone doesn't know the story of that, it's Bruce Campbell, and he's basically he's Elvis in a nursing home.
Yeah. With Ozzy Goodman, I can't remember his name. But he thinks he's JFK, and they replace his brain with sand.
Yeah, basically there's a mummy.
Yeah,
going around killing all the residents of the care home.
It's sucking their souls out of their assholes.
So who's going to believe sort of like old Elvis, and so they go off on the hunt together trying to kill this mummy.
It's a really sweet movie. That's why it's not really a horror movie. Don Coscarelli, who did Phantasm, and like there was going to be a load of films, but him and Bruce Campbell apparently didn't get on. There was going to be Bubba Nosferatu,
which sounds cool as well. Bubba Hotep, I think
Bubba Hotep is brilliant. Constantine as well. Constantine 2 is coming out next year.
Actually fucking completely forgot. I love Constantine, and obviously you're obviously a big fan, having all the comic books and all the graphic novels going back God knows how long. Jesus fucking hell, would have been Hellblazer. How long are you collecting them?
When it came out. But Freddy versus as in like the original Hellblazer, so the Vertigo run, kind of like, so you're talking maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Fuck. Freddy versus Jason. I was nearly going to put that in the top 10. I was like,
there's plenty of other good films.
The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah, that was quite good actually. Another harkening back to all there was a slew of exorcism films came out there,
and that was like, whereas you kind of question true. It was like, was it real or was it? Ginger Snaps.
Oh yeah, I don't really remember that. I remember the hype around it, but I don't.
I think it had a big impact on say a certain age of people. Like I saw like the premiere of it up in Edinburgh when it came out, and really liked it. Like it was a really good movie. But
people were kind of saying like it is actually a kind of good play on like sort of the transformation a teenage girl goes through anyway through puberty, like
But they do that thing where it's like their friendship and like your woman, you feel sorry for it. Certain things just she's turned into a werewolf, just turns hard, But a really good movie. And like Slither as well.
That's an honourable mention.
But I think that might be more sci-fi. Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity probably should be in the top, but I think you look at that once and it's just...
I know it is another one of these found footage or mockumentary type thing where
it started off the whole mockumentary thing,
yeah, and it's like obviously, I mean, you can do so much nowadays with there's CCTV everywhere, so it's like you can entirely do it out of found footage.
But it's fucking boring.
I hated it. You're all hyped to watch it. I was like, oh my god, this is like watching a fucking baby monitor all night. Like.
I was really disappointed when it came out. Obviously, because the way it was marketed, the marketing was like best thing.
Yeah,
and they went back doing that 70s fucking thing or the 50s thing where it's like, people are passing out in their seats. They're it's the scariest movie ever.
Passing out of boredom.
Yeah, and then it's like, and like the characters weren't likable at all.
That's why I didn't even give it an honourable mention, because I do think it's important, I suppose, as a film, and it kickstarted all that whole thing, but I just hated it so much.
Well, there are very few good found footage movies.
Yeah.
Very, very few of them. And Teeth.
Yeah, I have that as well. Yeah,
that's a fucking weird film.
It's play on the whole vagina dentata thing.
Yeah. It's nearly like a horror superhero thing, isn't it? Like a weird X-Men kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's like her superpower kind of thing. Yeah. But, quite funny as well, but quite horrific, like, you know.
And then I had Ichi the Killer as well.
Very good.
So there's quite a lot of shout-outs from me. Do you have any other ones?
Yeah, I had a few there that you mentioned as well. So, Teeth, Eden Lake.
Eden Lake is
that's
rough,
very, that's brutal altogether, and it's one of these films where kind of afterwards you come out and you're kind of like, oh.
It's got a terrible ending to it. It's not as terrible as in kind of like, it's a shit ending, but it's just like it's really depressing ending to it.
Yeah, and it's just ultra violent kind of a thing. So Eden Lake.
Happiness of the Katakuris.
Yeah, Happiness of the Katakuris, because it's just so mental. Like, I mean, it's we watched it. We should go back and watch it again actually, but it's just like. It's just this mad fucking...
It's a musical.
Yeah, it's kind of like a musical. There's a family, basically all their guests in their hotel, like they end up having to like try and hide the fact that they're after like dying in terrible ways, but like it turns into like this like fucking plasticine model fucking thing.
Oh god,
Do you remember? Like, I mean, it was just claymation kind of thing as a plasticine model. Yeah, but you know what I mean?
Takeshi Miike.
Yeah, and it was just fucking bananas. But I thought that was something that you just needed a shout out to that, just because it's so wonderfully fucking nutty and insane. Everything else you've kind of more or less mentioned. Day Watch and Night Watch, which were very big at the time.
Yeah.
And I can only vaguely remember, but I do remember they were actually quite good.
Yeah, they are definitely more fantasy.
Well,
yeah, I did. Yeah, I read the books. They're definitely more fantasy with it. The books are... Well, the films are really good. The second film isn't that... It'd be better as a TV series.
Yeah, it has a very specific kind of universe, and it has this. It really defines the feel. It's just I think it's done very well from that point of view. Like, it's kind of, you are living in that universe, and it's very specific to that. And
like, world. I mean, the first two movies, they don't really cover much. You know, there's so much with the characters to get into the characters. And it's very hard to do, and as well they're kind of like action movies the way that they were kind of done. That's like the guy that directed it as well, they were tough on fuck all money at the time. Timur, oh god, he ended up doing like American movies. I think he did Want It.
Oh, right.
With Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy.
Yeah.
But I think he went back doing Russian movies, like. But yeah, the great movies, like.
Yeah, but yeah, so there's a good few honourable mentions there, really, I suppose, to keep you going. But yeah, I think it was possibly the decade of sort of the horror movie with a bit of comedy thrown in, because I'll go back again to Shaun of the Dead
And brutality.
Dead Snow, that kind of thing. Yeah,
I think you had like horror movies were kind of coming back, being popular, but it was like all the remakes and the horror comedies were like doing well in the cinemas, and
torture porn, which I'd nearly put Martyrs in that as well as Hostel, you know.
But that was with the underground scene, because you had that like August Red's fucking stuff.
Tell me, when was the Serbian movie out?
Oh, I think that might have been 2010. Oh, it might have been 2000s actually. Yeah, no, it might have been the 2000s.
I will never willingly watch again, thanks.
If I had to remember that would have been my number one.
But anyway, there you go. There's our various top tens and honourable mentions for the aughties, the noughties.
Yeah, the aughties, yeah. And again, way more there than I would have expected. You know, when you sit down, you start putting lists together, and I have a funny feel. Say the 2010s. I think it's the time of the emergence of like fucking elevated horror, what they call it. The kids call it A24 and all that stuff. But there's like, even off the top of my head, there's some fucking really good movies. And like, I do think that we're in the golden age of horror at the moment. Well, I think maybe we've just always been in the golden age of horror.
Well, if you're a horror fan, you'll always be enjoying them.
Yeah, there's always like underground directors doing it.
But yes, this is from the year 2000, the distant future. The year 2000.
Affirmative. But yeah, look, thank you for listening. Tell your friends about us. Tell your grandmother about us, if she's alive.
Tell your pet zombie about us.
Yeah, and until next week. Bleh.